The mightiest tournament in the multiverse continues, spawning the exhibition match between Universe 9 and Universe 7 as Majin Buu and Basil conclude their epic battle, which is going to lead into the second round starring both Gohan and Lavender, prompting the beginning of a very interesting battle. And joining me here today to share our thoughts and predictions in what may or may not happen in Dragon Ball Super Episode 80 is my good friend Emosh, and in which case we have a lot to talk about here today, guys. So if you guys have not checked out Dragon Ball Super Episode 79, make sure you guys go ahead and fast forward into the video, go watch the episode and come back so we can talk some Dragon Ball Super. And of course, you guys are also invited to share your thoughts down below as to what you guys believe is going to happen next week. So Emosh, you have just concluded watching Dragon Ball Super episode number 79, and there is a lot to talk about, especially going into next week's episode. Now, right off the bat, the first question I want to ask you is, how do you feel about the situation where Bergamo pretty much told Lavenda, you can kill, you know, to your heart's contempt, and you can do as you please, with Gohan having to see, you know, he has black and blue eyes. I mean, obviously he's been poisoned, and we do know based on this episode that, you know, the Omni Kings and the Grand Priest don't care if you're allowed to kill your opponent, or if ringing, I mean, obviously ringing out is no longer in effect. So what are your overall thoughts on Gohan? Even prompting, even prior to having to go into this battle with Lavenda, he said, I wanted to test my powers. So what are your thoughts going into this fight with Gohan and Lavenda? Because I can feel Gohan having to, you know, be at a disadvantage during the early portions of this fight, and similar to Majin Buu, I can see him turning it around. But what are your overall thoughts on seeing him become a Super Saiyan, having to be blinded, and ultimately having to be at a disadvantage, especially after seeing Lavenda beat him down? We know that, you know, down the line he's going to awaken his dormant powers, but what are your thoughts going into next week's fight?
Well, alright, so to talk about the whole Lavenda and Gohan fight. Well, first off, it was confirmed by Goku that overall, it's not going to be a specific technique that's unique to Lavenda, but Goku did confirm that what's interesting about Universe 9 fighters is that you cannot sense energy from them.
And no, that does not mean they're gods, guys. In case you guys are wondering, that doesn't confirm that they're gods.
Definitely not. So that's something that's unique to them as characters. Which is big, because like Goku said, there's really no telling how strong they are or how much they can power up. Even if they do power up, then you still can't, in essence, or according to Goku, even tell how much stronger they've gotten. But as far as Lavenda is concerned, he doesn't really look the type to be like a physically strong fighter, but he does look creepy and dirty, and just like he will do whatever he has to do
to win.
To win. And just like he said, listen, if I can kill, then I can win. And Bergamo just responded by saying, listen, kill to your heart's content, which is big because now it just goes back to square one. I mean, there really are no rules, and ultimately it's just dependent on whether or not the Omni King is satisfied with your performance, which gives us something to look forward to, because now if Gohan is pushed into that corner, right, then it only makes sense that he's pushed into that kind of corner, which he has no choice but to awaken this so-called dormant power or fighting spirit. So I think it's big. I think fans will be happy. Again, when we did our previous video, I had mentioned how I would prefer to see Gohan lose. Right. And he is one of my favorite characters of all time. But I felt like it was important for him to lose, so that way he could redeem himself later. But if he is fighting against someone like Lavenda, who has the intention to kill, and not only that, but to poison you and, you know, slowly just until you wither away, that's really big. And I think going into next week, I think this episode will carry over. Right. And the thing I gotta say about episodes like this, you know, when they have one fight, and then the end of the actual episode will be the introduction of the next fight. I think, especially because I was watching it, and maybe it's just me. I hope it's not just me, but I felt like something overall was missing from the actual episode. And then it wasn't until like it was over when we heard the narrator talking about what just happened and stuff like that. I felt like 20 or 25 minutes, it didn't feel like it. So I'm not sure if it's because I was so busy just being, you know, drawn into it, that I just totally lost track of time. But personally, in my opinion, and don't get mad at me for this, I felt like 78 was more enjoyable for me to watch. But I gotta say, it was great to see all the other characters interact with each other. Beerus was funny in this episode. Zeno was very cute. The Daishinkan did display, once again, we're seeing him display his authority. And
which I definitely think is a plus.
Right,
because we saw once he nodded at Beerus was just like, all right, I'm not gonna say nothing to anyone because I don't want to start any trouble.
Exactly. But I gotta say though, it's safe to say that yeah, this wolf gang, they fight like it's, listen,
Oh, they're
they
dirty.
fight like
They're
it's,
very
yeah,
dirty.
and they're wolves, yeah, which it goes well with their, what, based on their design. But going into episode 80. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of Gohan ass. We're gonna see a lot of Gohan getting his ass kicked, and then towards the end of the episode, he's gonna bust out something, and then that's gonna be the end of that, and then we're gonna be like, oh fuck, episode 81 hype, like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
definitely.
yeah, so I think overall great episode. I just feel like, maybe to me, I'm not sure if it's because I'm tired or whatever, but I just feel like something was missing. Hopefully, I'm not the only one that feels that way. But for the Majin Buu fans out there, I know they definitely got what they wanted.
Oh, definitely. We haven't seen that style of Buu in a long time. Even though it wasn't something incredibly major to where, like, everyone and their mothers kept talking about, man, he's gonna transform into Super Buu. No, none of that. Like, Kid Buu, Super Buu thing, that's been over and done with. But what I enjoyed was how in the beginning he saw him as a playmate, and then once he saw Hercule get injured, he was just like, oh, hell no.
Got hurt, it was a dead giveaway there.
No, of course, and I think we spoke about this. I think we spoke about this last week when I told you that the only way Boo's gonna take this serious is if something happens to Hercule. And lo and behold, Hercule was kind of playing along too, and that triggered Boo a lot. But once we saw the Kaioshin give Basil whatever it was he gave him, Beerus was just hilarious because he said, drugs, you're taking drugs, cheating. Drugs. And that was great. And finally we have interaction between gods, because we saw the goddess, we saw Halise speak for the first time, we saw Topo, in which we're gonna get into a little bit, because that was incredible in what we saw. We saw Champa speak, we saw Beerus' interaction. So finally the gods are starting to kind of bicker with each other. But I think Gohan, as you said, he's bound to get his ass kicked left and right next week. And that's not saying it to where we're bashing Gohan. No, we're saying that to the point of view as, if you look at the episode preview, even as a Super Saiyan, it looks like he's kind of having a hard time, because even while stepping foot onto the ring, he said, well, this kind of gives me a chance to showcase my powers and to see how, how much I've improved. Yeah. This is not the time to do that. Gohan, I think, had the time to go back and train and do all these kind of things, but now I think this is going to be the ultimate wake-up call, because Buu is very different than Gohan. Buu can regenerate. Buu doesn't have a problem with absorbing, attacks or whatever. Poison. If something were to happen to Buu, he can recover. He can bounce back. Gohan, he can't really bounce back after, having a hole blown through his chest or something like that. So Gohan is going to be poisoned. He can't see, and he's reverting to using his Super Saiyan form for now. And it is confirmed, guys, that Ultimate Gohan will return stronger, quote-unquote, than ever before, which is cool to see. And as you said, I think that going into next week's episode, he's going to get beaten around so bad. I mean, because first of all, you're losing your sense of, being aware of your opponent's energy. You can't sense their energy, so he's at a disadvantage there. And plus, he can't see. So how are you supposed to kick, punch, or even blast somebody away if you can't sense them and if you can't see them? So that's really gonna like mess with you. Like I want to put you guys, I want to put the audience in a position. Imagine you can't see, and imagine you can't feel somebody's presence around you, and they're beating you around left and right. Like, that's gonna force you to go crazy. So I really hope that he dips into those emotions, similar to how we saw in Dragon Ball Z, and then he just kind of like erupts in rage and just has enough, and really shows these guys like who's boss. Obviously enough, guys, don't expect no Super Saiyan White, Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan Rage. I've seen tons of comments before talking about that. Is it possible? Who am I to say? I'm not the creator or the writer of Dragon Ball, but I can bet my life that Gohan is going to have Super Saiyan White or Super Saiyan Blue. Now, I wanted to also talk to you about the tension between the gods on our side, Universe 7, the Elder Kai, Kibito, Beerus, and the Universe 9 Supreme Kai, because he is the loudest. He is the mascot of that universe. All he keeps talking about is, you're weak, screw you, we're the best. The three-man gang, we have whatever. What are your thoughts on potentially seeing, the Supreme Kai of our universe talk to him? Or do you see any sort of like physical confrontation, not altercation to where they actually touch each other, but to the point where even if he gives Lavenda the same drug as he did Basil, do you see anyone kind of like stepping up to him like, yo, you can't be doing that, like, stop, like, either stop or you're gonna, face consequences? Do you see, like, Beerus doing that? Because in this episode, he was really pissed. But do you see, like, anyone saying, like, yo, this is BS, like, why are you handing your fighters extra stuff, like, these roid, like, candies or whatever, to, like, see, I feel as if it's Pokemon. They're giving each other rare candies, and, like, they're just evolving into, like, these monsters. So do you see, like, more more bickering between the gods happening next week, especially with the poison?
Bickering, yes, definitely. But at this point, I guess it's whatever the Omni King wants. If it's entertaining for him, if the fact that Gohan is blinded and poisoned and potentially on the verge of dying potentially, because that is Lavenda's intention, right? I would imagine that like I said, but Lavenda doesn't seem to be a very physical fighter, like physically strong. But I imagine he does do well once he gets that poison locked into his opponents, right? And then he just drags the fight long enough to the point where you just succumb to that poison and eventually just drop dead. I imagine that's how he just looks that way, right?
Right.
But I do see bickering has to happen. It's good for entertainment. It adds to the depth of the story, and it adds to the potential story of when the actual tournament of power starts, because now Universe 9 is already not necessarily on the radar, but we already know what we're dealing with, and it gives everyone that wake-up call, or at least Goku, Gohan, and, well, not Boo, so to speak, but it does also allow Beerus to also see what everyone is capable of. But as far as, like, Ro, the Universe 9 Kai, I think his character, the way he acts, plus the fact that he's a Kaushin just doesn't add up, but at the same time, I'm going to agree with it because diversity is good. It does give us,
said the same thing. He was like,
and he was like, what a despicable Supreme Kai. That's what he said.
Very despicable, very greedy.
Definitely, he's an asshole. Like and Sidra,
he doesn't do anything about it. He's calm. He's so calm.
What a wasted opportunity. I mean,
now I know that kind of irritates. I mean, I don't want to say like, all right, we've seen the last of him, because I still think that there's more to this. But I thought, like, originally the roles were supposed to be reversed. Like, I would have thought, like, Sidra was the one to be all antsy and stuff and not really caring and saying, you know what, we're the best, screw you, you're weak. But he's very calm. He's looking at the Supreme Kai like, yeah, what this guy said. Yeah, just, go us.
And when Basil was, like, all drugged up, right, and roided up, and he was just kicking Majin Buu's face in, and Ro was like, yeah, this and this, kill him or do this and that, and Sidra was just, like, looking at him like, don't you think this is a bit too much? And I was just like, oh, what a
he's
troll.
He's a very calm one, and
he's literally a troll. Yeah, he's literally a troll. Like, he just got demoted to troll. So but bickering, yes, bickering is necessary. The interaction is great. It adds entertainment, like I said, and it adds to the depth. It gives us something to look forward to, especially going into episode 80. I just can't wait to see how Beerus reacts. Beerus always reacts that way when his fighters are at a disadvantage. Because if we look at it, every time anyone from our universe has fought, almost any time at least, the fighters they go up against always have this thing that they use to make it, to give them the advantage. You know what I mean? And that always causes Beerus to naturally assume that the person is cheating, or he's, changing the tides of battle so that it favors him specifically, which normally you wouldn't use in a actual fight, a fight where you have, balls or honor. You know what I'm saying? So
they don't care about that no more, man.
Of course not.
That's out the window.
Of course, and at this point,
someone said in the comments, they think that Gohan is gonna pull a Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. He's just gonna get up and fight blinded. He's gonna beat up Chun-Li and stuff, like, without no.
Well, he has no choice at this point. I mean, how else would we have it? He has no choice. That's apparent. What's interesting though is if he can't fight in his Super Saiyan state, what does this power up provide for him? You know what I mean? Unless it heals the poison some way, or
could be.
You know what I'm saying? Because now it's just like, well, let's look at it from that perspective, where okay, even if Ultimate Gohan returns, even if he does power up and he's just a beast, okay, but he still can't see, he still can't sense his energy, he's still poisoned, so where do we go from there?
However, I mean, and I hate to bring this up, but this also goes back to Dragon Ball GT. Android 17 used to pick up vibrations in the atmosphere, right? That used to detect his opponent. When Goku used to use instant transmission, he used to detect the vibrations in the atmosphere to determine where he's going to show up. So what I'm relating to Gohan here is there might be a similar connection to where, all right, he can't see you, he can't feel your energy, but maybe he can feel the vibration around the atmosphere to where he can kind of predict where you're going to be, like similar to how Goku predicted where Hit was going to be by being able to, like, predict like his next movement. So even though he can't see, maybe he can feel the vibration in the atmosphere as to, like, the surrounding area, or as you said, whatever he does with his ultimate powers could either temporarily heal him for a little bit to where his eyes are like slightly open, but he's like a little blinded by it or something like that. Either way, he's going to be returning. But do you think that Lavenda is going to beat him, or do you think Gohan's going to beat Lavenda by the end of this battle? I mean, this could end during episode 80, 81, but
I think
the bottom
81.
line, who do you think?
I think episode 81.
Okay.
But as far as how it will end, that would be the ultimate troll.
Is to have Gohan lose.
It's to have Gohan lose after, the fans are given what they want. So it all depends now. It all depends what the fans ultimately, I no pun intended when I say ultimately, it all depends what the fans want. Do you want Gohan to win? Or do you want to see Ultimate Gohan return? Or do you just want everything?
Yeah,
do you want him to win and have Ultimate Gohan return? So it would be the ultimate troll to have Ultimate Gohan return and then he just gets embarrassed. I imagine that would be the last straw for everybody.
Of course, people would grab their pitchforks and torches.
And because if he loses where he's not Ultimate Gohan or he's not as strong as we think he should be, that's fine. Because now, okay, you know what? He's gonna redeem himself. He has no choice. Great. But if he's Ultimate Gohan or he's just a monster, a savage, like cutting Cell Juniors in half kind of savage, we all remember that look that he had on his face. If he has that look and he just loses, that's sad because Lavenda, again, I'm gonna call it, Lavenda is not as powerful. He's just not powerful, but he's a very tactical fighter. These fighters are very tactical. So to poison your opponent where they can't see, and the poison, it deteriorates their body, makes them weaker. Of course, you're going to have an advantage over them physically as the match progresses, right? But to lose to Lavenda, especially after you power up to that degree, is really embarrassing. So I'm going to have to say Gohan has no choice but to win. They have no choice but to allow him to win because they pulled the Ultimate Gohan card now and not later. He has to win now.
I'm predicting this is going to be a sweep. I think
Universe
7 is going to sweep them. I mean, they're at least giving us something to where it's like, all right, it might be a sweep, but we're just going to throw in the whole poison thing and like, how does that work in? So I think that it's going to be a clean sweep. But I also want to say, and I think I stand by this decision, I think once the Omni King realizes that Universe 9 got swept, I really don't think he has any need for them to compete any further into this tournament. So I think that as an example, he's going to destroy the universe first. I mean, I could be wrong, guys. This is why it's a prediction.
You're saying to set an example, he's going to erase. To set an example
that he is dead fucking serious about this. I think that if they get swept, the Omni King is going to say, okay, well, Universe 7 did really good, but you guys didn't really entertain us.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
And then you can see like the Supreme Kai and Seadra like all in fear.
But how would we go into the Tournament of Power with 11 universes though?
Easy. I mean, they could always hold one universe off. For example, universe number 11. They can always keep them sidelined.
Unless they hold 7 because they just technically participate.
Yeah. Since they participated, give you some time to rest. So I definitely think, as an example, I can see the Omni King saying, all right, well, I promised that I was gonna destroy, so Hakai or whatever, and just gone. I can't. Maybe Seadra and the Angel and the Kai may not go either. They might just be there to watch over the tournament. But I think to make an example, Universe 9 is gonna get destroyed first. And I invite you guys to post your comments down below because as you guys saw in the video, I'm featuring comments from various different people. So if you guys have something to add, drop it down below. But that's just my opinion on it. I think that even if Gohan gets beaten around, same thing with Buu. He's going to turn it around. He's going to have his ultimate form. And when it comes down to Bergamo and Goku, even though in the intro we saw a base form Goku whooping his butt, we don't know if he's going to turn Super Saiyan and just, finish it off or something like that. But I can definitely see Bergamo having the same approach and saying, you know what, I'm going to poison you too just because or whatever, But like, what are your final expectations going into next week and what you want to see personally as a fan?
Well, I gotta say, now that you mentioned the whole, universe destroying thing, I gotta say, I guess a part of me would like to see that. I guess it adds to something. It adds to a storyline. It does confirm that it will actually happen because there are people out there in the community that feel like, oh, they're just bluffing, just to make the fighters, give it 100%.
Yeah.
So that would totally okay, well, you were saying,
that would be
any other theories that
nobody would see that.
It would be great to see that. I just don't think because if you allow them to live, now see when you mentioned interaction earlier, it gives Ro the Kaioshin and the Waste of Life Sidra and his fighters a different perspective, especially going into the tournament. Not only just against Universe 7, but I think it adds more to the interaction of characters when you just allow them to live, because now it's like, well, oh, those guys are this, those guys are that, we have to do something about it, because Ro does look very dirty. His tactics, he's just dirty. I gotta say it. He's just dirty. So
and what I like is how Beerus was like after he heard Goku talk about, well, I'm so excited. He was like, what a carefree simpleton. Like, my God. Like, how could you be so excited during a time like this? Like, this is such a crucial thing. I love that. So he's still bitter about this. He's still, you can tell, like, this is personal to him.
Yeah, he's not gonna let that shit go. But I think ultimately letting them live would be the best, because the best, I guess, turn of events, because like I said, it adds to something. Now Universe 7 has shown them what they can do, and now Universe 9 can just, I think it just adds to a later on interaction that we might see between, we might see some more bickering between them. Like, oh, well, the only reason we lost is because whatever, you guys
they
suck.
make up excuses.
You know what I'm saying? So that adds to the interaction of the universes at the same time. But Bergamo does look like a sore loser, though. For some reason, I feel like if when he loses to Goku, he won't accept it. He won't take it lying down. I feel, and the reason I make that assumption is because according to the information we got about him, he uses poison, right? But he never fights fair and square. You know what I'm saying? So someone like that, when they lose, they never sit down and get put in place. They never take that shit quiet. So I feel like letting them live would add interaction, but at the same time, destroying universe and setting the example would also be very, very huge. And I think something like that is probably what this episode was missing, in my opinion. I'm not saying they should have destroyed a universe this episode. I'm just saying, but that wow factor. Because look, Majin Buu beating Basil wasn't really a surprise. There's no reason why he should not have been able to do it.
Right.
Because we know what Majin Buu is capable of. And just because we haven't seen him fight doesn't necessarily mean that he sucks. But I do have to say that scene at the end when he said, "You're strong, but I'm even stronger," and then just does like a Buu Kamehameha and just wipes him out. That was amazing.
No, it definitely was. People forget how strong Majin Buu really is,
right?
Man.
Because he leads us to he's the reason why we forget it, because of his demeanor, his nature.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do feel like Episode 80 has to give us that wow. We need a wow, because now we're thinking about 79. Going into Episode 80, we're just like, okay, Buu won. Let's see Gohan now. The spotlight is on Gohan. Come on, Gohan. Give us something. Give us something to wow about going into 81 when you claim your victory, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And that hype needs to last, because once the Zen exhibition match is over, I imagine we're gonna get some kind of filler, probably as Goku assembles his team, the Universe 7 team. So I don't think we're gonna see much fighting, but we may see more interaction between the gods, Kaioshins, characters. 17 needs to make his reintroduction, so they have to give him that little spotlight, so that way the fans could enjoy his reappearance into the series, things like that. So because of that, I feel like they need to give us a big wow, and I think if you look at it, Gohan might be the ticket for that. It just depends how they handle it. That's just how I feel about it.
I definitely agree. And again, guys, I invite you guys to post your comments down below as to what you guys think, because me and Emosh are definitely going to be looking over your comments and seeing what you guys have to say. And again, everybody, thank you all for watching. If you guys are Dragon Ball fans, don't forget to subscribe for all the latest in Dragon Ball news, information, updates, gameplay, and discussions. If you guys enjoyed the discussion, if you guys cannot wait for next week's episode, slap a like on the video, and don't forget to also subscribe to Emosh's channel, link down below in the description, guys. Thank you all for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed. Tune in for more, and we'll be seeing you all in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Peace.